Hello everyone, and welcome to How to Write a Teen Novel that people will actually read. So, think of this. You're sitting at home and the perfect idea comes to you for a teen novel. Of course, if you're a novelist to be, your house looks more like this. Unless, of course, this house is your parents' house, in which case your house looks a bit more like this. So, I should probably start by mentioning that I came up with this idea laying in bed at night. Being a comedian on YouTube, this is what my bed looks like. Actually, that's better than my bed. So, on to the important stuff. Conventions. Because it doesn't matter how good of a story you have, it's crap if you can't tell it right. So, what do you need to worry about? Well, first off is the tense. Now, these are teens we're talking about. They don't like school. Well, they don't usually like school. The ones that read might like school a little bit, but really, not history. Not a lot of kids like history. They like the now. Therefore, all your books must be written in present tense, not past tense. Instead of said, you do says. Instead of gave, you do gives. Instead of did, you do does. Instead of screwed, you do screws. Instead of gripped, you do grips. Simple thing to follow is just to add an S. It fixes everything. For instance, your X. Ta-da! Now, perspective. Because you want to think about how they want the story to be told. Well, a lot of books are written in third person tense, so a lot of people like that feeling, but primarily adults. Adults love the feeling of power. But teens like to relate to the characters. Therefore, you give them first person. They can relate. They can get in the character's head. Don't worry about second person. It's so unheard of that people don't even know how to write in it. Next up, word choice. Now, with word choice, you have to remember, these are teens. They like to feel smart. They like to feel special. So you want to use bigger words. But you don't use words that are so big that they read this and like, I don't know what that means. I feel stupid. A simple rule of thumb to follow. Longer than thumb, but shorter than proximal phalange. Now, we're onto the story content. The real important part of this. First things first, of course, is the characters. One character being your protagonist. The main character of the story. The one that it all focuses around. So, of course, as you may know, the protagonist is the one that everybody was going to end up looking up to. Primarily, all those girls that are looking to give out their hearts. Not just any girls, but those feminists that have an iron grip on the book market. So, your character must be a female. Not only that, but they must be normal enough for them to relate to, but sexy enough for them to give them something to strive for. Jennifer Lawrence, bit too much. Now, your supporting character. Because your protagonist is a girl, your supporting character is, of course, a guy. And because it's a teen novel, there's not going to be a whole lot of depth to this guy, because teen guys don't have depth, at least according to society. Therefore, you might as well make him a boy toy. Think like Ryan Gosling, David Beckham, or Channing Tatum. Now, your antagonist, the bad guy, the hated character that everybody hates out loud, but in reality and back in their mind, they kind of appreciate some of the dark craziness of it. So, in order to make a good antagonist, they must be smart, refined, crazy, and sadistic. Action. Now, whenever you get to action, you want to have the right amount of stuff. However, you gotta be careful, because too much gore, and it's not going to be able to make a movie, if it comes to a movie, that the teens can actually watch. I mean, think about it from that perspective. What do you want on screen? Because you don't want to be people getting drawn and quartered on screen, even though Braveheart sure didn't seem to care. So, a good rule of thumb to follow. Think about what's going to be on there, else you'll end up like Bilbo Baggins, or Frodo Baggins, without a finger. So, romance is a very important part of every teen novel, because they like to have that romance. So, you need to know what's theirs. There needs to be restraint, primarily on the part of you and your characters. That restraint is the main separation line between Divergent and 50 Shades of Grey. Not to mention also the fact that Divergent is written about 10 times better, which is not saying much. So, a simple rule of thumb to follow. Where's this thumb? Is it insider? You've gone way too far. Plot is an important factor. So, we're all familiar with this extensive pyramid. You have exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and denouement. I have no idea what denouement is. I'm used to resolution, but there's a U in it, so it's probably a British thing. So, if you haven't killed anyone by the rising action, you gotta kill 3 people by the climax. Therefore, at the same time, between rising action and climax, with that little upper part right there, that's about where you want to have that first romance scene. Unless, of course, you're writing an adult novel, in which case it's going to be speckled all over the place. And that romance scene usually doesn't get talked about until about halfway down the falling action. So, I gotta leave you with some last thoughts here. First thing, of course, is that you cannot mention religion of any kind. You cannot mention controversial topics in a teen novel, because all teens are idealists, i.e., liberal. Other thought to keep in mind is that to make sure the last book in your series has enough content, because there's a good chance that Hollywood is going to make it into 2 movies instead of 1. So, any questions? Good, because we're out of time. If you want to see more videos like this, comment below, like, subscribe, blah blah blah, the whole spiel that you get from every YouTuber over the course of history. And if you have any ideas on what kind of comedy you want to see more of, let me know.